Well, welcome back, everybody. We are so excited to be joining you during this very patriotic time. I know we had Independence Day last week as we were heading into July 4th, and it felt very appropriate as we continue to celebrate summertime and the lovely things that we all love about our country and do Captain America! We love Cap. Obviously has been a classic. He's coming up on 100 years, pretty close. I think he's at like 85, 87 years since his original comic was created. Obviously, we've seen him throughout the MCU in several films. We're going to focus specifically on the very first one, First Avengers.
First Avenger.
Came out in 2011. Obviously, we had just a couple years before that, we had the first Iron Man in the MCU and the first Hulk that was considered part of the MCU. And with those two films, it, of course, ushered kind of that original grouping that included Black Widow. It included Thor, Hulk, obviously, Hawkeye, and, of course, Captain America, because he is the first Avenger. My cinema history geekness, of course, at Maven Cinemas, we love deep diving down the rabbit hole of cinema history. Captain America was actually the first superhero that was created live on the big screen. So before you could sit down and binge something streaming, you went to the cinema, and we do see that portrayed here in this film. In Captain America, he showed weekly in 1944. I think it ran for a good few years. So fun to have that out there in our cinema history world, that Captain America was the first live action superhero. And then we get to have him again as this first Avenger. So many great characters came from that. Bucky Barnes, we love ever so much. He's been obviously in quite a few branches of this franchise.
Yeah.
Chris Evans himself has been quoted saying he as a character is everything he himself wishes he could be as an actual true guy. You know, he's just all of the things that represent being good, being kind, being patriotic, sacrificing himself. We see in the beginning, before he even has his superpowers, he jumps on the grenade to try to save everybody else, not realizing it's kind of a training exercise from Tommy Lee Jones. Grenade. But you know, and it's not until the Doctor sees that he has these traits, that he is driven, he's motivated to try to protect his country, he wants to be a protector, he wants to be giving, he wants to serve, and it's because of what is inside that the Doctor's willing to put him through that crazy experiment that turns him into the iconic character that he is. We, of course, lose Bucky Barnes in this. He's supposed to eventually... Captain America's shield gets passed on quite a bit in the comics themselves. Bucky Barnes, we see him fall to what we think at the time is his death. Of course, we learn later it was not his actual death. He, in the comics, is the one who takes the mantle and becomes the next Captain America. For us in the MCU, of course, it becomes the Falcon himself, who is now Captain America in our world today. And we love Anthony Mackie as Captain America now. We're so glad to see how all of that has progressed over the last 15 years since this film came out. But yeah, we just wanted to get patriotic with you, and let's talk about some Captain America.
Yeah, so in my house, Captain America is our Avenger. When Civil War came out, we were Team Cap. There was no option. Honestly, it is because of what Steve Rogers embodied and what he represents, and the idea that he was very physically, literally an underdog, right? Like, there was no way on this planet, in any reality, in any multiverse, that somebody would imagine he was a superhero. And so the idea that he just genuinely wanted to contribute and do his part, but not like doing remedial office work or something. He genuinely wanted to go out there and fight Nazis.
Of course, we get that symbolism in Red Skull, because Red Skull, this is another thing that actually did happen in real life, not Red Skull, but it was an era when scientists actually thought they could maybe make some of these types of things happen. And so
magic and science.
Yes, like being able to create the enhanced soldier. There was actually quite a bit of efforts put into that for real in the history, not just in our country, but also Hitler was working towards trying to find something like this. So it's one of the reasons why these comic books were created, because art imitates life. We see the little kids. We see them with their Captain America comic books, and we see them with their trash can lid that they painted to look like the shield. Those were things that were happening in our world. during this time, because there was just this need and drive to be patriotic as the world was kind of pitted against each other. It kind of actually really brought Americans together during that time, and it helped pull us out of the Great Depression and helped improve the economy. And so to have a villain like Red Skull, who really like visually perfectly embodied what was happening on the other side of the world, and at a time where, again, you could only get your news from newspapers and going to the cinema every weekend. And so to get updated information was a lot more challenging than what we experience today. So an extreme character like Red Skull would be very easy to kind of create and lean into as you're envisioning, like, what is happening in the world? What is going on?
There were stories, obviously, of Hitler, the extent to which Hitler was kind of crazy, which, to be fair, is certifiable. He was crazy. I know because
Straight from a mental health
I had
specialist.
to do a 10-page paper on diagnosing Adolf Hitler for abnormal psych on the grad level. And the interesting part is delusional disorder is about one of the only things we can certifiably say without knowing behaviors like prior to a certain age in the most weird and unfortunate of ways. But the idea that he was able to try to blame a whole entire race of people for the downfall of a country is legitimately a delusional disorder. So, that being said, though, the idea that he then could have been going other ways with thoughts and beliefs that were interesting, that Red Skull also gave us that opportunity for Marvel to open the door to Hydra, because essentially that's what Red Skull does. He ends up breaking away from Hitler and the Reich and trying and almost mutinying and creating Hydra, the idea of you cut one head off and two more grow back.
So that gives us this really nice duality that we get to lead into for our villains and our heroes for maybe the first decade of the MCU. Obviously that went away eventually, but
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. went that direction. It honestly helped
really
open the door. They did. But I mean, to be fair, when we get Winter Soldier, as you said, Bucky Barnes, which Bucky and Steve in and of themselves are contrast. So setting up Steve's origin story, the idea that his best friend from childhood is a prototype male who is strong and built and healthy, etc. The idea that he's going off to war and essentially that Steve is getting left behind almost is what's fueling Steve wanting to prove himself and that he is equal and he is capable of protecting his country and contributing to the same level. And as you said, the Doctor, played by Stanley Tucci, who we love and adore, he identifies Steve's traits, and there's a line where he acknowledges bullies, aka Hitler and the Nazis, but therefore when picking someone for this serum, for this project and experiment, it was very important for him to find someone who was willing to sacrifice themselves, like he did with the grenade, who was clever with the flagpole, right? Who prioritized the good of all over self, which honestly, if we're being very, very honest, is pretty much military and armed forces. And that is the reality of when you sign up for the military, what you're committing to.
And you want so much to help out, and he can acknowledge, okay, I'm helping because, like with anything, like with the arts, like with pretty much anything you need to do in the world, it takes funding to accomplish, the things you need to accomplish. So he is able to help raise awareness and encourage people to support financially through bonds, which again is a pretty big deal considering we were just coming out of the Great Depression at that time. But, he's so bummed. I do appreciate, as a costume designer, I appreciate it gave us the opportunity to take the original uniform from the older comics, so we get to see that highlighted. And then I actually love that he takes there's three girls, one has a U, one has an S, one has an A, and they actually got little helmets. Mm-hmm. And he literally steals the A from USA. So clever, so that's how he has a helmet. And he hits that moment of, okay, enough with this theatrics, enough with this stage stuff. My friend's in trouble. I have to go save him. And he's so patriotic that even after he saves his friend and all of the rest of the Howling Commandos, he still turns himself in. He's like, I'm here to turn myself in. I know I disobeyed orders.
Yeah.
I know what I did was wrong, but I had to save my friend. Again, with the sacrifice, you literally can't help but sacrifice for others.
It's just how pure and wholesome he is, which honestly is kind of why, for my family, Cap was our hero. And at the same time, my children's dad is military, and my dad was military. My stepbrother was military. So very military-centric family. But so that idea of country and others over self is a very big deal, right? It's something that was that generosity and that selflessness and that idea of community, because military communities they're so tight, and it is ingrained into military lifestyle to support the families of the military members. And so as a military spouse, my mom was a military spouse, that was a norm for me. The idea that, like, when the holidays came around, my dad, as an officer later in life, because he was enlisted during Vietnam, but then he went and got his degree and became an officer and went into the Air Force later in life, that when the holidays came around, he would always make sure if anybody needs somewhere to go for the holidays, they're more than welcome to come in.
That's awesome.
Sometimes he would take time out of the holiday to go actually to the building that had some units and shops that were 24-hour run shops, and it was shift work, and make sure that the guys had been fed, that they were getting some holiday things and being acknowledged for their presence and their sacrifice for the holidays. And that's not to mention, so what you referenced when he stole the helmet, to be very clear, that was a USO tour. USO tours being very classic.
And he, of course, really experienced the sharp contrast as he goes from houses filled with civilians that want to find any way they can support, and this at least gives them an outlet for support.
Yep.
When he tries to give essentially the same show to actual soldiers, it's like, it kind of almost punches him in the face of like, oh wow, these are the guys actually doing it.
They're like, bring back the girls.
And then the guys are like, we just want the ladies at that point. Like, it's
love
a joke
you.
for them, and Cap knows that. It's a joke
Right.
for him too. He's like, I just want to be out there with you. I don't want these bright colors on. I
Right.
literally just want to be out there with you. And then he does.
That is the acknowledgement, you know, and the idea that when he is faced with that reality, yeah, like they're just tired, and the idea of, yes, he's
They've
from
seen
home,
so
but the thing they
much.
actually want from home are the women. They want, which again, when you're also at that point, there were no females in the military, really, which is also why Haley Atwell's character is so pivotal. The USO tour is very classic. Bob Hope did it. Robin Williams did it. We've seen a handful of different celebrities go and do it. That's what he was doing. They're a morale thing, and they go to all the different locations that we have troops overseas and abroad to try and maintain their morale and help them remember, like, this is the mission, this is what we're fighting for, we appreciate you, you know, like, and they try to provide some joy and entertainment. Like, that's what USO tours were about. So the idea that the guys aren't going to be interested in him, they don't really care, and he can be in however many movies he wants, do however many shows he wants, and ultimately they're going to ask for the girls back. But you are right, it's great. The setup was great. I love that.
Peggy Carter, I love, we get introduced to her in all the training. She meets little skinny Steve Rogers, and she is this voluptuous, gorgeous woman, and here she is clearly kind of like getting drawn to this little skinny guy. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love that the two of them develop feelings for each other, because it's not that she develops the feelings after he's transformed. She falls for him in his like original genuine state, and she is drawn to him because she sees things like jumping on the grenade. She's getting, of course, not very polite and kind comments from some of the other soldiers, and Roger stands up for her. She's impressed by the flagpole intelligence, and so by the time they're on the way, he even like has so many nice things to say that are, you see them kind of throw her off while they're just driving arriving to meet Stanley Tucci's character. So she's already developed like a nice little foundation of feelings for this guy in his original genuine authentic self.
Yeah.
So she's the one that when he starts to cry out in pain from the procedure, she's the one who stands up and starts to shout, "You have to stop it! You have to stop the procedure!" Because at this point, she actually cares about him and she doesn't want to see him hurting like that. Then of course he comes out of that chamber and she has to do everything in her to not.
I know
touch.
She does the little, and it's so funny. It's so funny.
I do not have permission to touch. He did not give me consent to touch him.
I did not get consent.
But I do love that she had genuine feelings for him when he was his original self.
Yeah, she
so
was
then
already
it's okay
attached.
that when he comes out, she can have those feelings too.
Yes, that they just expand even more, and especially as he proves the fact that he isn't okay with just being a figurehead. He wants to actually engage in the fight and contribute and carry his own responsibility in it. We also meet Tony Stark's dad.
Yes!
Right?
Oh my heavens.
Yeah.
He does such a phenomenal job. I feel like he just fits right into that world because of course we've already established his son, Tony Stark, in a few films by this point. And I mean really just the fact that we're now going back in time to the 40s, the cinematography is stunning. You've got this almost sepia tone like filter that they put on a lot of
sepia tone. I was such a nerd in high school for sepia tone.
Everything is like glowing and
ambers.
You really get that feeling like you've been transported back. And I mean, I know for me, I grew up on the stories of what it was to be around that age at that time because my grandmother also fought Nazis for real in real life. I grew up on all those stories. Yeah, she was a freaking warrior woman. I think it's another reason why I love Peggy Carter so much because I feel like those two would have been in the same tribe together, hands down. But yeah, I do love that we get kind of that nice like feeling as though we've been transported back in time as we have this little insert that depending on who you talk to MCU fan-wise, this is chronologically the first film because people talk about watching them from the release date order or watching them chronologically, and then most people jump to Captain Marvel because that took place in the 80s. But there are some die-hard MCU fans that would actually claim Eternals has scenes that are obviously thousands of years before this, but we're not here to dive down that rabbit hole.
Right.
You're welcome to go dive down those
rabbit holes. We're not doing it.
So if we're not going to discuss Eternals, this chronologically is taking us back in time farther than any of the other MCU films.
So because technically release date wise, we had the Iron Man and I think
1
we had
and
Thor.
2. We had Thor
before
and we had Hulk.
We had the Hulk.
So and we had Hawkeye established in
Thor.
in Thor, and Black Widow established in Iron Man. I was getting ready to say them backwards. Yeah, so that we got those core characters before we got the first Avengers film, which already has just gone down in cinema history, which I love. I love that we got to experience the witness of cinema history being created.
Yes, and so it was Dominic Cooper as Howard Stark.
He was so brilliant in that role.
Yeah, he obviously also has that charisma that just works as representing RDJ because we already had
where Tony
Stark established. Yeah. So
newer generations have enjoyed being able to see through the What If series. What if the tables had been turned and it was actually Peggy who wound up in that machine getting that procedure?
I was going to say, and that also happened in Multiverse.
They loved her so much animated that they literally decided to put her in the multiverse because that wasn't on the original
as a reality plan. Yeah,
but such fan response. They brought Haley Atwell back, and they're like, okay, now you're Captain America. So yeah, we've gotten a lot of representation with this character. We've seen, Bucky, who got kind of close to the edge of what they did in the comics, at least with what they put on his arm. He has the shield on his arm. So you've got someone who is navigating mental health challenges. You've got the female version. You've got our amazing black man representation. So Captain America, I do feel like they have done quite a little bit to
they've done well.
Make sure he can try to represent at least parts of our country. Obviously, it would take probably thousands of versions of Captain America to do full representation. But
that's okay, because
for one singular character, he's done some. Yeah, that's all right, because we are going to keep talking about movies with you.
Exactly.
Because we love them.
We're going to do it anyway.
Back on the big screen. We love talking about them on the little screen. It's all great. Storytelling is great. So I love the MCU. It's just filled with so many stories. And that is the other nice thing about there being so many, is there is kind of something for everybody. So maybe Captain America First Avenger is your jam. Maybe Captain America with the Red Hulk is your jam. Maybe you're not into Captain America. Maybe you like somebody else. So I appreciate. Well, thank you again for joining us. We are so excited to be right in the middle of summer, and I hope you guys are enjoying all the summer fun things. Thanks for taking the time to get out of the sun for a second and come and watch us and chat about movies. As always, we'd love to hear from you. Is this your favorite Captain America film? Is there another film that you love him in? Have you watched the 1944 serials that was the OG Captain America? If you can even get your hands on those things, I don't even know. I've always wanted to try, but I haven't deep dived enough to look. But yeah,
I love that project. We're definitely doing that.
Speaking of scavenger hunts, that's the one to do. Let's find the first live action Captain America back from 1944. But yes, and then maybe there's someone else in the MCU that you love so much, or maybe you're a DC fan. All of those things are great. You get to choose because it's your life.
Do you have the best time, right? That's what Being a Geek is about.
That's exactly right.
But yes, remember your sunscreen from your friendly neighborhood ginger. Remember your sunblock, guys.
That's right. And get back out there, jump in that pool, eat some watermelon, watch some fireworks, and we'll be back again with some more Marvel awesomeness in just a couple weeks with Spider-Man. We're so stoked. Well, thank you again, guys. We can't wait until next time. Thank you. Bye.